This is Dr. John Whitcomb talking about eating too much meat isn't good for you. It's all about the sulfur. Very interesting study. In fact, published in The Lancet, one of the world's most prestigious journals, looking at 11,585 Americans from the NHANES study, the National Health and Nutrition study that we do in America, and get intense details on and then do nutritional study. The last time was done way back in the last century, about 20 years ago, when they had data on precisely how much meat and therefore sulfur containing atoms. And here's what they found. With very strong statistical significance, that we're eating about 2.5 times more animal protein than we need. And the net effect is that we're getting more methionine and cysteine, the two amino acids that contain sulfur. And as a consequence, that net effect is there's all sorts of processes that go inside our bodies that are downstream from that. But the net effect is that's what correlates the most strongly with the increase in diabetes, metabolic syndrome, heart disease, stroke, vascular disease, all of the illnesses that are plaguing modern society. So it's not just the meat per se, but the excess animal protein, 2.5 times more than we need. Let me just give you a little insight on what happens when that happens. It may be all sorts of signaling messages put out by methionine, or it may just be acid. And let me demonstrate that. Americans have gotten wealthy in the last 200 years, and our tongues have a preference for animal. We have the flavor of meat as one of our preferences diffusely over our tongues. And we like meat. And as we've gotten wealthier and our society has been able to afford it, we're getting 50% of our calories from animal. Okay? That's new. Through most of human history, we got 20, 30% at most from animal, except every now and then in a feast, until this recent century. What happens when you eat sulfur-containing amino acids? Well, your liver has to digest that extra stuff and break those amino acids down, and it's left over with extra sulfur atoms. That turns into sulfuric acid. That becomes acid. When you eat vegetable proteins, the biological salts of the net effect is you get alkali. And you can measure that in your urinary pH. You can go to Walgreens or CVS right now and buy pH paper for your urine and measure your urinary pH and measure and see what happens when you eat animal. Your urinary pH is very likely 5.5, 6, maybe 6.5 if you're a really good vegetable eater, but very likely less than 7, which is neutral. If you spent a week doing an experiment of just eating nothing but plant, asparagus, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, cauliflower, Swiss chard, above ground plants, no root vegetables, your urinary pH would be 8, slightly alkaline. So as we become animal eaters, our urine has changed to acid from alkaline. Well, we know that's the engine that's driving osteoporosis. Could that be the engine that's driving coronary artery disease? We don't know. What we do know is simply secondary evidence. We do know that if you follow an absolute plant-based diet, read Esselstyn, you can reverse coronary artery disease in 2 years. I've seen it happen to my own family. I had an Uncle Paul who was the second or third patient ever open heart surgery at his hospital in Columbus, Ohio, and went on a plant-based diet for 2 years. And when he went back for his follow-up cath, all his coronary artery disease had disappeared. And his bypass surgery had clotted off. His native arteries were open. That was in the early 1980s. I should have quit my career and become a functional medicine doctor then. We're still struggling with it because the very nature of our tongues is we like animal. And the net effect of that is it could be acid, simple acid and base because that's so fundamental to how membranes work, or it could be something more complicated, but it's definitely there. We're eating 2.5 times too much meat. What will work for me? I am currently on a 5-day fast mimicking diet where I'm being a vegan for 5 days, but most of the time I probably have cut my meat consumption in half, trying to make bigger servings of vegetables and smaller servings of meat, trying to have at least 1 or 2 vegan days a week. I like meat. Not that meat doesn't like me. This is Dr. John Whitcomb with News and Nutrition on Meat Isn't So Good For You. It's all about the acid.